Aloha. Welcome to the Walking in Aloha, Let's Talk Story podcast. We're so glad to have you here. Ekomo mai. Now here's our podcast host and award-winning author, Michelle.
Aloha, everyone, and welcome to the Walking in Aloha Let's Talk Story podcast. For those joining us for the very first time, this podcast is a space for real conversations about resilience, healing, faith, creativity, and learning how we live the life that we were created to live. Here on the show, we walk through the ALOHA Always Framework, which is affirmations and actions, leadership and love, overcoming obstacles, health and healing, and acute awareness. My name is Ebalaroza Kawano, and I'm your host. Today's guest embodies this framework in such a powerful way. She's a keynote speaker, a 3-time Guinness World Record holder who hula hooped for 100 hours, and a woman who continues to live boldly after a multiple sclerosis diagnosis. She is also stepping into a powerful new chapter, helping lead partnerships for an eco-friendly company, creating sustainable toilet paper and tissues wherever every order contributes to supporting people with disabilities experiencing financial hardships. So let's talk story with Jenny Doan. Thank you for coming and joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Great to be here.
Awesome. So before we dive into the framework, I'd love to give you a space for a little share, telling us about you and who you are at your core and what moments in your life shaped the way you are today.
That's such a big question already. I think at my core, I am a very adventurous person and I am open to what life has to offer. And although some of those life events, like my diagnosis, have been really challenging, I've always found that when we find a way to accept our circumstances, whether or not we chose them, and we allow ourselves to be changed by them. And I think recently with the MS diagnosis, that meant changing what I thought I believed about myself, my values, my identity, and that my world has opened up so much more because of it. And so things like becoming a motivational speaker, meeting you through our public speaking, and all these little things that if I had gone back in life and thought, I wish all these painful things didn't happen, I would have missed out on all these other things. So I am really excited to be here to talk about just life, and I'm always interested in the possibilities that come up because oftentimes it's beyond your wildest expectations.
Excellent. So you've done something incredible with your Guinness World Records journey.
Mhm.
What sparked that path for you? And what did that experience represent beyond achieving the record?
Yeah, I feel like it might be a bit cliched, but part of it is returning to your inner child because growing up having Vietnamese immigrant parents, we were very academic focused. Like you get your good grades, you get your stable job, and that's kind of, success. And I went through that course through university, getting a stable government job, and then just feeling really disappointed. Like, is this all it is? Like, do I just keep doing this and then I retire and then I do the cool stuff? Because that's like a long way away, like 60. And at the time, I felt like, am I the only one thinking this? Is this crazy? And I had to challenge that and see for myself. And so I did a lot of things that people would think are insane. So I went and did a volunteer assignment overseas in a country I'd never heard of. I got really into cycling. I quit my job and cycled across random countries around the world. And at the time, it made no sense to anybody because I went to university to study maths and stats, like as far away as you can think of from cycling and exploring the world. But then it just taught me that there are so many things that you think aren't right for you, like when you're not good at sport or you're picked last. And then you find the way that you do like doing something, and it's a game changer. So I kind of went on that journey, coming back periodically to work in different jobs. Found myself really loving working in tech even though people were like, tech and startups, that's super risky, that's super, hard. Why would you want to do that? And I was like, I'm having fun. Like that's a good start. And then I found myself, working in the US, working for Uber. And at that point, I wasn't cycling as much, but I thought, I'm in the US. I've got a lot of spare time now. Let's, do something I wouldn't normally do back home. And so I had a hula hoop that I packed, just like a random hobby that I picked up a few years ago. I was like, what happens if I were to go for that record? One that I'd looked up, 5 years ago. And at the time, it was the longest marathon hula hooping, which was 75 hours at the time. And I saw that and I wasn't afraid of it. I was curious. I was like, wonder if somebody could beat that. Like, is that me? And then it turns out all the cycling that I did and all those other adventures just gave me that foundation of that endurance, of that mindset, of that ability to find a way around tricky things. And I felt like if I don't do this now, there's always going to be an excuse not to do it. And so I set a date. I was like, we have to do it by this date. It was, I think, 2 weeks before Thanksgiving in the US. And so November 2019. And I went for the record. 3 months later, the pandemic happened. And if I had held off another month, like that opportunity would have been gone.
Yeah, you would have. Yeah,
And
exactly.
so I always think, like, whenever I'm on the fence about something, I'm like, if I put it off, the opportunity might just be taken away anyway. So why not have a crack now and then just see? And if it's not for you, it's not for you. But you can't find out while you're standing on the sidelines.
Wow, that is so incredible. That is so good. I love that, not waiting, because yeah, you're right. You could have waited and then that opportunity would have been missed, right? But how many people have missed opportunities and only go back after the fact?
Yeah.
So that is so good. That's so good, no regrets. So you're stepping into a powerful new season. That upcoming cruise that you were speaking about, how's that opportunity and to work with that business and partnerships? How does these things come about and like what do they mean to you right now?
And although I'm someone who loves logic and loves math, so many of these opportunities just come up randomly, like not at all on schedule, not at all the way that I anticipated. And so I ended up landing a gig for a cruise to be a speaker. And I'd never even been on a cruise before, but I saw it on a random Instagram ad. They were looking for speakers. And so I just wrote,
Oh, wow.
I'm a world champion hula hooper. Is there any interest in what I'm talking about? And the first response back was like, they had a list and, you need a speaker's reel. And so if you're not a public speaker, what that means is a video of you speaking with examples of, how you appear on stage. And you can include things like feedback from people to show that you're actually good at your job. And I didn't have that evidence yet, even though I'd been speaking on stages before. And so then that's what pushed me to run my own show and pick a venue, invite people and record it all and get people's feedback. And then when I put that together, I submitted it and he's like, okay, we don't often get world champion hula hoopers. Come on board. So they put me on their website. And if you go through the website, they've got like 2 categories. They've got destination speakers who specialize in like, art and culture of a particular region, which makes sense. And then there's special interest where it's just wacky, inspiring stories. And so in that category in Melbourne, there's an astronaut. And then there's me, a hula hooper just below that. Me with my hula hoop and my microphone. And it's just kind of funny to see that, juxtaposition. But it was just the realization that you have a story to tell, and sometimes just 1 or 2 steps you need to bring it to the next level to access this other level of speaking. And so sometimes you wait for permission for someone else to invite you, or you just get the pieces you need and then you pitch yourself. And
Wow.
it was just, just do it already, lady, if you want it. And I think, again, that was like pushing me again, where you see an opportunity and like, go for it. Just go for it, lady.
That is incredible because, like you said, you didn't have that speaker reel So you created the space for you to have it. You didn't wait for somebody to invite you. You didn't go, oh, yeah, I don't have that yet. I guess I can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
That would be the easy way out, right?
Or be
That would
like,
be the easy
oh,
way.
I need to have 1,000 people watching me speak, or I need hundreds of people, or whatever amount that you think
Yeah.
is appropriate. And it's like, no, that's not true at all. You just invented that as like a limit or a barrier when they said, we just need proof that you can do your job well. And so there was a lot of like,
Yeah.
when are times you're holding yourself back and like, stop doing that. It's very annoying to do that. And allowing yourself to have the thing that you want rather than making excuses or reasons why you're not ready or it's not for you.
Wow, that is so good. So good. Love it. So in January 2025, you received the MS diagnosis.
Mhm.
Can you share what that moment was like for you and how it reshaped the way you live, lead, and show up today? I know you mentioned a little bit about it before.
Yeah, so I was in a big moment of change in my life, and that's when you don't want a devastating diagnosis. But life is just like, I'll show you. At the time, I was working full time and I was doing motivational speaking as the side gig, and I was training for my fourth Guinness World Record. And I was getting this intense fatigue, and I thought that was just burnout because you're doing three big things at once. So I was like, okay, pick
Yeah.
two of the things, not just one, we'll just get two. And so the motivational speaking was just something I knew was important to me, and the Guinness World Records are just fun as hell. So I'm like, full-time job, get out of there. I had enough like savings runway for about 2 years. So I was like, okay, we don't need to be in a hurry for this, and we'll just focus on that. So I was doing the world record for the most chin-ups while hula hooping, and so that was very physical, and it was similar to the other records. I, have a plan, a schedule, and I just slowly work up higher and higher until I get to my goal. But then I started getting these weird symptoms, and I went to a doctor, and I was like, feeling a bit of numbness. Like, is that like hormones? Is that a vitamin imbalance or something? And they're like, nope, that's normal. We'll get you a referral. Let me know if anything changes. So I just like go along with my day. And then one day I'm at the gym and I'm just hanging from the bar. And normally I can do that for a minute straight, no worries. But then 5 seconds in, my hands just spring open. I'm like, oh, it doesn't feel right. Like, that can't be
Yeah.
right. And so when I went back to my doctor, I told her about that. She was just like, ping. Like, she knew immediately that was a red flag because they do a strength test where you like squeeze their hands. And that was normal when my hands were in front of me, but not above. So that suggested there was something wrong with my spine. And so I went straight to the emergency department. And I ended up getting admitted to the stroke and brain injury ward. And then it dawned on me that this is serious. But I was in the right place. I was talking to neurologists and they were taking it seriously. So that's a good sign. But it was
Yeah.
also the day before my last day at work. And so the next day I get my MRI and it's an hour lying in this thing, super loud, perfectly still. And I'm thinking like shit. Like, do I need to take back my letter of resignation? Do I need to go back to my old job? Do I need to like cancel everything and just like move back in with my parents? Like, what is going to happen? And there's just like an intensity of just fear. And because the MRI is about an hour and a half, that's a very long time to be in that emotion. And so I kind of stepped back and I was like, okay, calm down, lady, calm down. Okay, hypothetically, if this is MS, what does that mean? Does it change how you feel about being a motivational speaker? No. Is it still important to you? Like, yes. So stay the path. You've created this, runway for you to financially support yourself. You have all the ingredients you need, but there might be this other challenge. You don't know how big or small it's going to be because MS is different for everybody. Because it is a condition of the brain and spinal cord or the central nervous system. It can be totally different between you and the next patient. And so that's like that big question mark. And it was just me in that MRI thinking, either way, I'm going to find a way out. Whether that is relying on the people around me, the support of my family, friends, specialists, doctors. It is me learning the skills that I need to get through this next level. And it is just, there has to be a way. And so I kind of came out of this MRI and I was like, we don't know what's coming, but we're going to stay the course. It might take longer, or it might, be years instead of months. We don't know. But if the destination or the thing you want to do is important enough, like, what difference does it make if it's a little bit longer to get there? And I think sometimes when I panic and I think, I wish I was there already, I just have to remember that feeling in the MRI that it was, at that time, I knew that I wanted to be doing this. And to just remember.
That is so good. That is so good. Because as a motivational speaker, you literally just did all the things you would do for someone else for yourself. You're like, what is important to you? What do you still want to do this? You did everything that you would do for someone else for yourself. And that is so important because it is truly how we start talking to ourselves and what we do. Because when I was going through the domestic violence and everything, and that's where this whole framework, Aloha Always framework, came about, because I didn't know what to do or how to do it. And I asked God and I was like, Lord, if you need me to write this book, if you need me to be that testimony for someone else, then you need to help me, because I don't want it to just be like a rehash of all the bad things I went through. Everyone has their own traumas and things that they go through. I didn't want it to just be that. So I said, if you need me to write this, you need me to do this, then you need to help me. And he said, I gave you everything in Aloha. I was born and raised here in Hawaii, and I knew what Aloha is, and I was like, I don't get it. It's like, I don't understand. But I started writing it out. Like, what did he bring me through? Because he said, I gave you everything in Aloha, not like I'm giving you everything in Aloha. So I had to look at what I already went through. How did I get from being the person that was so scared, so beat up that I'm hiding in a closet, to this place where I'm like, I can help people. I know, I understand. That feeling of, I never want anyone to be in that silence anymore. So if I ever heard someone in that, I'm like, right, I'm like, right there. No, this is how you can do it. I understand. But I had to write it out, and it was the affirmations and actions and all of the things that I went through: leadership and love, overcoming obstacles, health and healing, and acute awareness. And now I share that with people all over the world, and like literally Saudi Arabia, Africa, Spain. And it's crazy. And I thank God for that, because I can say I see people walking in Aloha in their own way across the globe. And when I go through the framework, I've had people tell me, this is the best way that I've ever had anyone ask me about what I'm doing. And I was like, I never looked at it that way, but I thank God for it. So let's do the Aloha Always framework and go from the top, which is the first A, in affirmations and actions. What we speak over ourselves and the actions that we choose daily. So what do you speak over yourself or do consistently that helps you keep moving forward, even in the hard seasons?
Yeah, I have a post-it in my kitchen and it says, I trust myself more than I try to control life. And that came about because I was very upset that my multiple sclerosis is autoimmune, which means it's your own immune system attacking you. And it felt like chaos, that I can't even control my own immune system. What control do I have in life? And it became a situation where control, more often than not, is an illusion. And most of the time, we can get away with that because life's going according to plan. And when it isn't, it is your realization that you don't have that much control. And that doesn't mean that you have to give up or stop trying. It means that you become adaptive and you figure out how to get around things, how to do things differently. And that's something that you can always do, whether that's your own skills or asking for help. And so there's so much that you can still do even when it feels like you have no control. And so I make it a point to remind myself that I trust that I can figure out what needs to be figured out and let go of that vice grip of this is how it has to be. And I feel like life just got a lot easier when I allowed myself to feel like I trust myself.
That is so good, to trust yourself and not have to try to always control the outward, like you said. For me, I hear you and I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel you. Because with this brain aneurysm that they found out, you don't have control, right? You can't control. I can't control if it's growing or not. I mean, it was funny because I asked the doctor, I said, so is there anything that I can do, like change my diet, change, like whatever. What can I do to make it like shrink or go away? How about that? How about go away?
Got any secret stuff?
Yeah. Anything, something you want to tell me? And he's like, well, you can't do anything to make it shrink or go away. What you can do is not do illicit drugs. And he's telling me this. I'm like, perfect.
Don't start
Perfect.
chain
I'm not doing
smoking.
it anyway. Right.
So, okay.
You're like, yeah, thank you. Doesn't help because I'm not doing it anyway, but hey, at least you gave me something. I won't start.
Dang, I was gonna give that a crack.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty funny how we want to control so much, but there's things that we can't control. But what we can control is that positivity, is that trust, and the moving forward. We can control that and not let ourselves be stuck in a depressive state where we're like moping around the house. Nothing like that, because that would be even harder, I think. Because like you said, the time in the MRI thing, that hour and a half of you just thinking, that was long, So you don't want to be like stuck in something like that for too long. So the L in leadership in Aloha is leadership and love. Leading ourselves first with compassion, courage, and grace. How has your journey shaped the way you lead yourself and show love, especially now as you advocate for others living with disability?
Yeah, I think for a long time I never paid attention to self-compassion. It was kind of one of those like, oh, I don't need that. I'm too busy. I've got other things. And it was almost like an aversion to it. And then when I was in a position where I was left with, I guess, the realization that I need to develop this right now because I was so self-critical. And I think it's those times when you have certain strengths that are really, really good in certain contexts. But then when things get flipped upside down, they can be weapons that are used against you. And so that sort of critique, that sort of stuff is great when you're a data analyst. When you're in a business and you're figuring out how to make more money or save more money, that's fantastic. But then when you're looking at your own life and you're just nitpicking, you're just like, you should be this, you should be that. And it just tears you apart. And that was my point where I thought, okay, we have to learn this in some way. Like, what's the least painful way to do it? So I ended up fostering a greyhound. So in Australia, in Victoria specifically, when greyhounds are no longer able to race, a lot of the time they get picked up by different organizations that rehome them. And I kind of felt like I had this affinity with these odd animals because they were designed for one thing only, to run really, really fast and like straight ahead, just tunnel vision. And everything in their life revolved around it, where it was like the discipline with like food, like being at a certain weight. They don't, play, they don't get toys, they don't get any of that. It's just like hard, every aspect of their life. But they're very good at that one thing. But then when they retire, they have to go and just be a normal dog. And so I fostered a dog for about a month before she got adopted. And it was like teaching her how to use the stairs, like teaching her what it's like to go for a walk and there are other dogs that aren't greyhounds. and how scary that might have been for her exposure, and how much love I had for this creature that didn't, understand English. I don't even know if she understood her own name. And if I could feel that compassion for an animal, why do I struggle so hard to feel that for myself? And I just started having all these moments where it's just clicking, where it's like, you don't love this animal because it can run fast. You just love it because of what it is, which is a living creature. And that it doesn't need to have a justification or a reason. You just feel love for something. And that just taught me how to, be kinder to myself, that I don't need to earn that. I could just have it. And I don't know why it took me so long to figure it out, but I'm glad that this opportunity made that a priority for me to take it seriously. And now that's a gift that I can have for myself and others, like, for the rest of my life.
That is super special. I had a miscarriage and I was having such a hard time that I felt like I had my other children and everything was fine, but I think I needed something for me and I got a dog.
Mhm.
It was a wolf dog. And that's the same thing that I felt was like, you can give so much to this animal,
Mhm.
right? Yet you can't, because I was blaming myself for the
Mhm.
miscarriage. Like, I must have done something wrong because I
Mhm.
have other children. How can I have 4 other kids
Mhm.
and miscarry? Like,
Mhm.
did I do something wrong? Was I more stressed?
Mhm.
And it was like weighing heavy on me.
Mhm.
And I was like, wow, that's so crazy. My dog, and training him up and teaching him how to go potty outside, not in the house.
It's a big one. That's a huge achievement.
Yeah. And all that things. It was like you could not like dwell on yourself anymore.
Mm.
And yeah, to show love and be more grace, like show yourself more grace, right? That's the whole thing. It's like, yeah, so good. I love dogs. I wish I could get one now.
Me too. Dreams, future dreams.
Yeah. So the O over in Aloha is overcoming obstacles, choosing growth instead of letting adversity define us. It's so easy to do so sometimes. What has been the biggest internal obstacle you've had to overcome? And how did you move through it?
The big one for me is acknowledging that there is no cap for how many obstacles will get thrown at you. It's not like the final boss, and then we're like, we're done, that's it, we finished all the obstacles. It's an ongoing thing. And there are times when we're like, can we just get a timeout? Because for me, it was 18 months between my diagnosis and my dad passing from cancer. So it was just layers upon layers of just like unreasonably hard time. And I never try and rationalize why, because there's never a good enough answer that will make you feel that it was, surface sufficient answer for why someone is no longer with you or why a circumstance happened. So instead, I just look at it as this is one of many trials you will have in life. And further down the line, it always becomes something different. It turns into something beautiful or different, or it allows you to meet people. It allows you to change your life in so many different ways. But you can't force that. You can't be like, I want this to turn out like this, and therefore give me this. It just has to take its time. And so when my dad passed, that's what drove me to become a motivational speaker. And could that have happened organically? Maybe. But it just naturally came out in that way. And so when you're in the obstacle and in the thick of it, your job isn't like, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? It's just taking care of yourself. And then as you come out of that, that's when all those other opportunities will be waiting on the other side. So in the meantime, yeah, you don't actually have to do anything. Just take care of yourself, love yourself. Like when you're in the hole for too long, find people who care about you to draw you out. Find things that make that painful part less painful. And so it was things like going to therapy. It's things like just taking care of your sleep routine, all these little things that will make a difference. And it might not seem like a big deal, but so many things are changing within you that you can't yet see. And you just have to give yourself that space and that time for that to naturally unravel.
That is so beautiful. It is hard, like when you're going through those obstacles, it is hard, but you are absolutely right. It's a list of many things that are going to come. It's not like it's one and done,
Mm-hmm.
it'll be others. But to
Mm-hmm.
have that knowledge that, what, just take care of yourself. If you get stuck, draw on people that can help you
Mm-hmm.
and never just feel like you're alone. I think that's one thing people do a lot is that
Mm-hmm.
they stay alone too long in
Mm-hmm.
it and, they stay in that hole too long. So yeah, it is important to know that there are other people to help you because like they said, mental health is important. It's real. When people go into those depressive states, it sometimes takes a while for them to come out of it. I know I had to be on medication for depression at one point, and it was during the domestic violence situation.
Mm-hmm.
And it made it worse because I'm in this situation with this guy, and he's telling me things like, if anyone knew that you were on that medication, they would never trust you again. Like that. Like
Jeez.
those, yeah.
Yeah.
So even to be in that situation and being on the medication, I was like, this is just so bad,
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was when I left him, I was
Yeah.
still on the medication and I didn't want to be on it anymore because it kind of made you feel like
Mm-hmm.
lethargic and kind of just like out of it a lot. And I was like, I don't want
Yeah.
to feel like this. And so I stopped the medication, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the doctor was like, oh, you can't do that. You can't just stop your medication. And I said, hell with that. Yeah. I was like, because I was already out of the situation with the violence and everything. I literally escaped, ran away to the mainland, and I was safe. So I knew I was safe. So that part was good. And when she told me that I can't just get off the medication, I was like, no, I'm not recommending anyone to do that, listen to your doctor. But I knew myself enough to know that I could not stay in that feeling anymore. And I did everything you said, like go out, do things, like seek other people.
Yeah.
Because that was one thing he told me too, is that, nobody would want to hear you. Nobody would want to hear what you have to say. And, so that's
Yeah.
all the abusive things. And
Mm-hmm.
so when I realized there are people who care, there are
Mm-hmm.
people who want to hear that I'm going through something,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and that was all a lie. So I knew better. So that health and that healing is what came about. And that's the H in Aloha.
Mm-hmm.
So honoring the body, the mind, and the spirit as strength evolves, right? How has your understanding of health and healing changed since your diagnosis?
Yeah, so with multiple
Some,
sclerosis, there isn't a
some,
known cure yet. And so most of the treatments are around preventing progression. And so the main drugs are immunosuppressive drugs to tell your immune system to just calm the hell out, to stop bashing you. And I was in treatments a few weeks ago and I Googled how much my treatment was worth. And so in Australia, the medication I'm on Ocrevus, is worth $16,000 for a dose. And in the US, it's probably, I don't know, 5 times as much. It's like quite an expensive drug. And the realization that it was $16,000 to calm down, essentially. And then mentally in my mind, it's like, I can also just do that in my mind personally for free. That it's like, multi-pronged approach, obviously, not just all the eggs in one basket. But there are so many aspects of my personal life and my own doing where I'm just sometimes just creating issues for myself or creating problems or like putting your thumb on the scale and making things heavier than they need to be. And so it's like could you stop doing that? So when I find myself doing that, I like notice it now. And I think back to that day where I was in treatment when, I did my 6 hours sitting in the hospital. It started raining. And when I walked, back to the train station, I took my socks off and I just wore my Crocs in the rain and just walked back to the train station. And how nice it felt to have the rain on me, and how nice it felt to just not care, not to be angry. I should have brought an umbrella. I should have bought a raincoat. I should have checked the forecast. And just letting that part of my brain just chill the hell out, giving it $16,000 worth of calm down, all right? And refocusing to that. So silly little things here and there, like missing a flight, instead of berating myself, it's just like, yeah, we're treating ourselves differently now. And we're choosing a different path consciously. And then eventually that will just be an unconscious thing that we do. And so I've been really appreciating how much mentally I've been able to train that. And it's the same as when I did the Guinness World Records. I trained myself to be someone who doesn't give up by having that pathway, that idea, and then just repeating it so many times that it became my normal. And that at any time in life, you can rewrite whatever it is that's no longer working for you and just pick something else. Feels weird at the start to talk to yourself out loud sometimes, but why not? If it works, I'm going to keep doing it.
That is so good. And I think it's amazing that you did all of the Guinness Book of World Record stuff before. So now you have that, like, as a training for you now. Like, you have it to hold on to it, to be like, I did that. I did all of these things to get through. I can get through this, So
Yeah.
that is so good. I love it. That is the last A in Aloha, because that is acute awareness. And you are aware enough to be like, I did this. I can get through. I know what it takes, right? So living present, aligned, and intentional. Telling yourself, I trained for that. I know how to get through. So amazing. So amazing. And it's like, how did that happen, right? For you to push through and win those 3 awards and then come to this, and you're like, if I get stuck, I know what to do. I've done it before. And even with the cycling, you cycled, like you said, all over the world, right? That endurance, that constant, and like how you said, those little incremental shifts that made things easier, made things better, those things that you could get through with. And it's like, that is so good. That is so important to know throughout life, especially like where we're at right now with this. You have something that you can't control, But what awareness guides you now? Like, how do you spend your time, your energy, and your purpose in this season? Because I know we were talking about the exhaustion and the the things that we have to deal with. And yes, it looks fine on the outside. Nothing changed, we look like the same people. But now that energy level, and so how do you guide yourself in that?
Yeah, so when I got diagnosed with MS, they said that you're technically newly diagnosed for the first 2 years. And I was like, it's a very long time. Like, I'm going to smash this out in 6 months. It's fine. It's fine, everybody. Massive denial, lady. But I think for me, the first 2 years, it was dealing with a lot of physical changes, a lot of the mental stuff. And so switching to a therapist who has MS herself, so having someone with lived experience has been a big game changer. And this year, it has been the year of the identity shift. And I think for a long time, I underestimated that, because my initial plan was like, I'm going to get MS, whatever. I'm just going to live my old life with MS. And then when I conquer that, it's going to be an even bigger victory. And anybody who has done any therapy would know, like, that's just your ego talking. That your mind is trying to control the way you want things to go, irrespective of reality. And so that was me doing things like immediately going for another Guinness World Record. I was like, if my arms are too weak to lift above my head, I can do a plank while hula hooping, and I can do that in my kitchen, and nobody could stop me. And then I realized I hate planking. Like 30 seconds feels like an eternity, and all of my records I enjoyed. I liked the feeling of them, even if from the outside it looks really painful. But in my mind, it was playful and it was joy. And so I was trying to replicate that and force a feeling that clearly I wasn't having. And then I got into running and I enjoyed that. I signed up for a marathon. And then I got heat sensitivity, where it feels like with MS, it's quite common, something like 60, 80% of people have this, where when their body overheats, all of their symptoms temporarily feel much worse. So if you get into a hot tub or a sauna or something like that, everything that you have as a symptom might just feel worse. And so for me, that's like legs are feeling heavy, my whole body just slowing down. And so no marathon, Jenny, that's not happening. And so I kept having these things just like, I'm trying to make it work and it's not. And then that's kind of where the identity part came in, where I had tied myself so much to physical endurance because I'd been doing it for a decade. And I was literally the best in the world at this one thing. And if I can't do that, then who the hell am I? And when I went to go cancel that marathon, I was like putting it off for the longest time. And I just committed to, like, today we're going to go cancel it. And on the drive home from my therapist, I just started crying. And I said, for the first time out loud, like, I hate you, MS. I hate you for taking away this thing, not just because I'm good at it, but because it brought me genuine joy for so long. And now I can't even touch it. Doing it feels like it's a compromise. It feels like me just seeing the gap of who I was and who I'm no longer. And that hurts so much on such like on a level that other people would think, like, you already have 3 records, like, why do you want more? Like, that's not a loss. But to me, it was my identity and my core and like who I felt I was. And so me like getting mad at it and acknowledging it allowed me to, I guess, decide what I want to do differently. And so with chronic illness or with disability, a lot of people talk about grieving your old life. You know, you're allowed to feel sad. Like, if you didn't feel sad, that'd be a concern. You know, you're meant to feel angry. You're meant to feel all these things. And I had to go through that aspect of it. And then at the same time, instead of just glorifying that as like the best my life is ever going to be, also looking at it and being like, what don't I want anymore? Because there were probably a lot of things there that were good at that time, but now are extremely problematic. And so that was now an opportunity to choose something different. That had this never happened, maybe I would have just gone on the same path forever. Or maybe I wouldn't have seen what I need to see to get to this next stage in life. And so that's when I was talking a lot more about my multiple sclerosis, and I did the Next Top Speaker Challenge. And the topic of that competition, it was thousands of people applying, was "This is me." And so I talked about multiple sclerosis, not as somebody who's gone through it, has figured it out and on top of the hill, but as someone who's going through it. And I got to the top 10 and I was super stoked about that. And then I got an email from someone from Shit Happens. And at first I thought, shit happens. Buddy, that's an understatement. Are you making fun of me? What is this? And here it is. It is a toilet paper company that supports the disability community. And I was like, okay, all right, let's have a meeting. We have to talk about this because the timing is like too perfect. And that's where they talked about, they're on this mission that they want to basically have this everyday product that most of us don't think about, and have people switch to our toilet paper, people, businesses, workplaces, that kind of thing, and to create a business where we can employ other people with disabilities and to donate goods to people in financial hardship, to do all these positive things out of something that is quite painful and dark and difficult. And it was just perfect timing. And I was so ready for it. And I had to go through all that other stuff before I could have it. I couldn't have had this 6 months into my diagnosis and be like, I'm cured, I'm ready, let's have it. Like, that wasn't real. That was just me wanting it. And this was me now changing my identity to be someone who wants to do things differently and allowing that change to happen. And the timing was just too perfect. And I think moving into this next chapter, it's like, okay, how do we make this, me? How do I do this in my way and find a way to bring the joy that I had from world records into this other thing and let it be different?
Wow, that is so incredible. Like you said, you couldn't have gotten to this point without having to go through all the other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we want to skip all the other stuff
Mm.
because it's a lot easier, You like, and like how you said, one thing after the other that you want to just call out a timeout. Like, all right, that's enough. I'm
Mm-hmm.
done,
Yeah.
And even with me because I had a hip replacement and the hip replacement wasn't going good, and they said that they may have to go back in and do another surgery, and I was like, oh my goodness. And then with the MRI for my leg, because at first they didn't even want to do an MRI on my head because I was having these bad headaches, and I told the doctor, I think you need to check my brain. I didn't know how to ask, right?
How do you do
But I
that?
think you need to check my brain because I'm having these like weird headaches, and I could tell the things I was doing that I normally do wasn't the same.
Mm-hmm.
And so I could feel something different in me, and I wanted them to check. And they were like, oh no, hormones and whatever else
Mm-hmm.
they can throw at you, and age for me. And they were saying menopause. And I was like, I don't think so. I think you need to check my brain. And so it went on for a long time of them not doing anything. It was the MRI that they were doing on my leg that actually got me the MRI for my brain, because I said, since I'm going in, I know how long it takes to get on that table. Why don't you guys just do the both pictures at the same time?
Mm-hmm.
I really would like to know if there's something going on with my brain. And they were like, you're right. You're there. So they went ahead and did it. That MRI showed that I had 4 strokes that didn't show up anywhere else, but in my brain. And one of it was a significant brain bleed. And because it was a darker spot, they were like, oh, we're kind of now more worried about this one and what is going on with your brain. And I'm thinking to myself, I just told you to check my, sometimes I
Well. Who's got egg on their face?
So yeah, right. Like sometimes you just need an advocate for yourself, because
Yeah.
doctors don't know everything. They can't feel everything that's going
Mhm.
on or what you know. And so they went in and did the CT because that's why they were like worried about that one marking in my brain, right? And it was the CT that showed that I had aneurysm. And so without all of that happening, they wouldn't have known, which is good because a lot of times when you hear anybody having an aneurysm, it's after the fact,
Mhm.
right? And so to be able to watch it, it is a good thing. But yeah, to just have that awareness about yourself and to be able to say, things can move forward. I know what's going on now. And like you said, you were, like that identity shift and those things that we do need to shift through, but continue to move forward past that, that is so good. So after everything you've experienced, the records, the diagnosis, and the life that you continue to live fully, I love that. What do you wish people better understood about living with MS, or now that you're with, helping people with disabilities, with the shit happens and all of that? What do you wish people would understand about us?
Biggest one is how common disability is. Because it wasn't until I started talking about MS that I had friends reach out to me and tell me that they'd had various invisible conditions like fibromyalgia, Crohn's disease, all these different things that you can't see. And that apparently in Australia, I think it's about 80% of disabilities are invisible. And so when we talk about disability inclusion, we talk about oftentimes it's surface level. So it's awareness and, it doesn't affect me personally until it does. Or I can't see it, out of sight, out of mind. And it can be so frustrating. And I think there's a big part where it's hard for people to understand, because I know that I wouldn't have understood it either until it affected me. So I have that compassion in that everybody comes to that understanding in their own time. But I think for a lot of people, it would help them a lot to learn a lot more, to whether that's, following disabled creators, listening to their stories, and seeing how much you can yourself make a difference, even if it doesn't yet affect you. And so for us with Shit Happens, it's simple as people switching their toilet paper roll. And so having companies come on board and say, yes, we care about disability and we're going to show that with what we do every day, with our actions, with what we buy, with what we spend our money on. Like that real commitment, rather than just saying we care and we donate once a year. And as somebody who is in the disability community now, there is so much that we're fighting uphill against. But that there's so much that people can do with what they already have. It doesn't have to be millions of dollars. It doesn't have to be big grand gestures. It can just be understanding, supporting, and actually giving a shit before it happens to you. And so there's parts of me that sometimes struggle with that. You can get very, very pessimistic and dark about it. But then also celebrating people who do step in and do something that helps us. So yeah, May is it's MS Awareness Month. And so learning a little bit about it, seeing how you can support with time or with money is a big step forward.
That is so good. Like you said, 80% of disabilities are things that you can't even see.
Mm-hmm.
And to disregard it as a disability.
Mm-hmm.
That is so important for people to see that there is a lot of that where people don't understand it. So, like you said, out of sight, out of mind, right?
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to ask if someone is listening today and facing their own diagnosis, setback, or feeling that impossible dream, what would you want them to know?
I would say to reach out to the people who love and care about you. Because so often we can hide and we don't want to worry people, or we're afraid of what people will think or say. But the people who love us can be there for us, but they don't know until you tell them. So don't be afraid to reach out, and you can be pleasantly surprised with who shows up.
That is so sweet. Yes. Like I mentioned before, being in the situation that I was in, I was told no one wanted to hear it. When I got out, I realized that there are people that came to me and said sorry that they didn't know. And I had to tell them, it's not your fault. I didn't say, right? That was the whole thing, that I didn't say. So that is important. Speaking up, letting people know, and just knowing that there are people who love you and care about you. It's like there's more people than you think. Sometimes people are like, no, there isn't. But really, there are more people than you think who would actually care about you.
100%.
But thank you so much. Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for being on here, for sharing your story, and for trusting us with your story and your heart today. Because your courage reminds us that the resilience isn't about pushing harder. It's about choosing to live fully, even when things change, even when that path changes. Like you were saying, it is so important. But friends, Ohana, everyone listening, if today's episode spoke to you, please share it with someone who needs to hear this encouragement. And remember that your voice matters, your story matters, and what you do now, don't wait. You don't need to wait until you have a diagnosis or until things shake you up. Life doesn't need to shake you up before you move forward. Do it now. Like Jenny always, she already said, That moment may pass if you waited. So until next time, I just want to say thank you again, Jenny, for being here. And everyone, aloha and a hui hou.
Thank you for joining us here on the Walking in Aloha, Let's Talk Story podcast. Before leaving, please hit that subscribe button. God's blessings always and a hui hou.